All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the weekly Deminar. Super excited to jump into round 2 here. I'm going to try to shorten this one and get the demo to be about 5 minutes. But before I get into it, I'm going to tee it up with a bit of background. So Jaxon's solving the so-called hallucination problem. Hallucinations are when an LLM goes off the rails and fabricates responses. It sounds plausible, but it is completely made up, which is a big problem when it comes to real-world applications that have regulatory controls associated with them, and there's a big downside to getting things wrong. So when we talk about addressing the hallucination problem, we are taking this approach where we are using LLMs, and we are agnostic to LLM. We work with any LLM, open source varieties, commercial, off the shelf, what have you. What we're doing is we're taking the outputs and we're structuring the language into code. So we take the output from an LLM, we turn it into code, which is what we call DSAIL, our domain-specific AI language. And then we tee up a program with that code that gets solved. And the solving is, you can think of a bunch of variables that we've structured in the form of rules, and then a bunch of values that we're extracting from the LLM output to plug into those variables to be solved. So if you have a use case where, and I'm going to get into this with the demo, where you need to be in compliance with something. The demo I'm going to show today is on FINRA compliance, and there's a FINRA regulation that says you shall not do this, and we extract content from the LLM's output that's the value that plugs into that variable, and it then can flag you have violated this rule. So as opposed to asking an LLM a question, we're using the LLMs as part of this process. And the risk in the whole process, the potential weak parts, are around information extraction versus the systemic problem of hallucinations. So we're avoiding the issue by making it more of an information extraction play than having the LLMs try to reason. Because we all know this, or at least I do because I live and breathe it, LLMs don't reason. LLMs emulate reasoning based off of all the data that it's been fed to learn from, but it doesn't actually think through problems. It's not using symbolic reasoning, which is what Jaxon's doing. So think of Jaxon and our DSAIL technology as a bridge from LLMs to tried and true rules engines and good old-fashioned symbolic reasoning. Okay. So I am going to skip over to the demo now. This is the Jaxon demo environment where we have a number of tutorials and documents to help guide users insofar as how to use the platform. Benchmarking tools, because everyone wants to compare with and without Jaxon. How much lift does it give? How much confidence do we have in our evaluations and our verification layer? The platform itself, and then the agent. So I'm going to show both of these today. So if I click into the platform, you see this is where you create applications. Applications can have multiple guardrails associated with it. And the bulk of this interface right here is done offline before the production agent is going to make use of the guardrails. And there is a bit of configuration that goes into this, depending on which guardrail is created. If I create a guardrail that is what we refer to as an agentic guardrail, where it's not following rules, as I was just describing, just giving lift to the LLM's output, using LLMs for LLMs. And we have a bunch of tricks around how we do this, consistency checking, how the consensus works, critique and revise. You'll see a recent post on our LinkedIn page on the different nuances to each of these agentic rails. Today, though, I am going to be showing you a policy rules guardrail. So we already have one created for this FINRA 2210D regulation, which I can probably quickly find it here, looks something like this, and it's a whole bunch of rules that have been written by most likely a lawyer, and it's not in machine speak. It's in natural language for a human to interpret and then translate into machine speak. And that's essentially what we're doing here, is we're taking that raw policy in. So you'll see this is the policy document. We're giving it additional prompt instructions so that the LLM knows what to do. And in this case, this first button and this first task is to convert that policy into a bulleted set of rules that the LLM is going to follow, and rules that the policy guardrail is going to verify compliance with. So policy turns into rules. So now we have a bulleted set of rules that a human can get into. They can come in here and say it does or doesn't reflect the policy well. In general, this step works really well. The LLMs are great at converting that policy document into a bulleted set of rules. Next thing we do is convert those rules into our DSAIL, into our domain-specific language that is effectively code, but you can see it's a bunch of Booleans. It's a bunch of, again, rules that it's going to follow, or programs that are going to be solved. But before we get there, we then turn these back into natural language, or all the code up here gets put into this format of questions. Questions that a human can come into and confirm does or doesn't properly reflect the policy. Everything is flowing down from that policy because that's the regulation that's being followed. So this question here I can get into, I can edit the question itself, and importantly, I can add additional context. So I just randomly picked this one. Is the deferral period unreasonable? So how do you define unreasonable? That's typically a human decision and very much qualitative, unless someone has in their mind, which from experience they do, the quantitative side of things. What would be a reasonable deferral period? That's another thing that Jaxon is providing, is a way of extracting that subject matter expertise or institutional knowledge into the form of these questions so that they're captured and able to be reused. All right, so once we have all these questions, and there are a number of them for this FINRA policy, but once we have them all reviewed and confirmed and any additional context added, they are all going to get packaged up into one master prompt and then go back to the LLM with a subject content to be evaluated. So I'm going to skip over now to the agent. So in this case, we have created an agent that is reviewing emails, and it can work for marketing content and text messages as well. But any content that's been written by a human within an organization, and in this case, we're focused on financial services companies, that has written something that's going to outside receivers. So this FINRA rule that we're working on is communications with the public. So it's anyone that they might be marketing to or selling to. So if I go back here, this is the email itself that was written, and we are going to click review and see any of the rules that were violated, any of these rules over here that we have codified that it does or doesn't satisfy. Satisfy being a technical term for whether or not the solver has determined that it's in compliance or not. So if I scroll down here, you can see that a number passed, and we have one failure. So it's nice that we don't have too many. There's not a lot of work for the compliance team, but we do have that one failure. And we can see that the member name prominently displayed, 2210 D3A was violated. Member name in this context means the company that is a member of FINRA and is representing or trying to comply with this particular rule. and this has been violated. I can click into this link right here and it will take me to this 22D3A, so I can see the original policy and see specifically what was violated, and then take action on it, make corrective measures that the compliance team will take from here. Our role is to flag all of these violations. The agentic layer that we've created here for FINRA can be created for any number of applications that conform to this. If I go back into the guardrails here, I'll quickly show another one where we're looking at a background investigation on an individual that's trying to get a particular job. And there's a set of rules right here that was in the form of policy that gets turned into code and so forth. The agentic layer that would sit on top of this would look quite different and have different tasks at hand. But in both cases, they are calling on these guardrails via an API. And so Jaxon is here to help you not only provide this guardrail platform, but we can also help you create these guardrails and implement these agents so you can start using generative AI in your workflows in a trusted way, in a production setting, and in a very high level of trust. Happy to show this demo to you live one-on-one and talk through all the nuances of how we can apply it to your specific use cases. So please reach out. You can find us at info@jaxon.ai, or just come to our website and you'll see plenty of links to contact us. Look forward to talking with you all. Have a great day.